Landlords across the country are being shaken down by tenant unions who are costing them a fortune. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting topic that I'm going to be covering today, and it's going over tenant unions. Now, in the coastal areas, I'm sure that people have heard about these tenant unions that are formed so that they could basically use their collective power in order to supposedly, go after these bad landlords who are doing them so wrong, fight for their affordable housing or for better living conditions or whatever. But what the truth of the matter is that they are pushing for the landlords to basically let them live for free, not be evicted. They're pushing for stuff like rent control. They're pushing for this good cause eviction nonsense. And they're pushing for all these anti-landlord laws that are really going to put a lot of landlords out of business. And this includes like single family landlords. So when a single family landlord no longer wants to be in the rental business, you know what they're going to do? They're going to sell to owner occupants. They're going to get completely out of the business. When a apartment owner wants to get out of the landlord business, hey, they turn their building into condos. And that's what's going to happen in these places where these tenant unions, they think, oh, well, we need to get in here and we need to pass all these laws and whatever because housing is a right. No, it's not a right, okay? It's no more right than food is, and you got to pay for every bit of food that you eat. I pay a water bill too. Water is not a right, okay? You don't have a right to something that you don't own, okay? And it's completely ridiculous that, hey, every time the landlord is made out to be this bad guy and all we're trying to do is just run a business and we're getting completely screwed over. So yeah, these tenant unions are a bad deal. And this is actually the article that I have today. It's actually coming out of the Kansas City area. And there is actually a tenant union that formed up in Kansas City where I actually invest. And they're pushing for all these new laws, all these new rules and regulations. While that area has been known to be very landlord friendly for a very long time, but things are changing. And that's the bad part, especially when you're talking about in the city itself. Now, in the city of Kansas City, 46% of the population are renters. So it's already bad news because that means that there's a huge block of voters who are renters, and so they're going to push the city council and they're going to push the local government to do what they want because they have the voting power. Now, obviously landlords don't make up that huge of a percentage of the population, but we do have our rights and we shouldn't be forgotten about. Now, before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below and let me know if you have seen these tenant unions in the area where you live right now. And put down in the comments where you live and what exactly they are pushing for. Everything I've seen that they were pushing for is complete socialism, and from what I've seen. I mean, they basically want landlords to let them live for free in the properties. We pay for everything out of our pockets and they don't have to pay anything. They can never be evicted. We have no rights to it. And, we just have to suffer. So I'm like, why would I do that? That makes no sense to me, but that seems to be what they want. Maybe I'm being exaggerating a little bit there, but that when you're talking about, hey, we want rent control, we want, forever eviction protections. We never, we never want you to be able to do anything with your property. Well, that's what it looks like. It looks like you think you own the property just because you're renting a place there, and you don't. Okay, you don't own their property. You didn't take any risk. You didn't save up money for years in order to pay for it. So, trying to punish me and tell me that, hey, I can't make any money, well, that just pisses me off. So this article is coming from the Kansas City Star, and it says, Kansas City landlords fault city officials for letting KC Tenants set the housing agenda. And KC Tenants is the name of the tenant union in Kansas City that, they've been around for a few years now, and they're really, really hurting landlords up here, okay? I believe that they had the eviction courts, they went and they blockaded the eviction courts even after the eviction moratorium had ended, hoping to just stop the judges from even being able to hear cases. That's how ridiculous this group is. So let's get into the article and see what it says. Oh, and there's a little bit here at the beginning. Landlords, we're coming for you. Some may question their tactics, but KC Tenants and its founders are making their mark. Robert Long has about had it with being a landlord in Kansas City. If I sell my homes, they will not be sold to another investor, he said. They'll be sold to owner-occupants because Kansas City doesn't deserve to have rental properties. As the group KC Tenants has grown, both in visibility and City Hall successes, Long is among the critics who have pushed back on many of its initiatives. There already was too much regulation and bias against landlords in a city where 46% of the population rents, he said. And it's only gotten worse since the advocacy group came on the scene in 2019, he said, tipping the power balance even more toward the rights of renters. Yeah, so there we go right there. Small landlord is just saying, hey, I'm getting out of this business. And, I don't think he should get out of the business. I think he shouldn't invest in Kansas City anymore. Okay, Kansas City metro area is a big area, and there's plenty of counties, and there's a whole other state in Kansas if you want to go over there, and they don't have these ridiculous tenant right groups over there in Kansas. And the law is different once you get outside of the city limits of Kansas City, Missouri itself. So you might find a much more landlord-friendly place just a few miles away. That's what I suggest. But hey, if you're that frustrated, you're getting out of the business, maybe you have better, more insight into it than I know from reading this article. First came the requirement that rental property be registered. Then in 2018, voters overwhelmingly approved the Healthy Homes Initiative, which gave inspectors the right to enter rental properties in response to complaints about things like mold and cockroaches, as well as make unannounced visits to inspect properties to check on suspected hazards. Landlords were required to pay a fee per unit as part of that initiative. Yeah, so they always do this, okay? They put these, we're gonna put this inspection thing in there just in case something is wrong. Well, the problem is that maybe 1% of all the rental property units across the entire city are actually run by bad landlords who aren't taking care of their property. The other 99% are run by good landlords. And now you've thrown inspection fees and, surprise inspections on this other 99% who never did anything wrong, who always took care of their properties, always took care of their tenants. Now they're being punished because you've got a few bad players. And that's what pisses me off. That's why I don't like all of this ridiculousness, okay? Do you think we have time if we have multiple units to be running around for surprise inspections? Of course not. And you just having a right to go up into property without a search warrant, okay? Without any complaints, that's completely ridiculous. Go get a search warrant. If you want to come into my property, go get a search warrant. That's what I say. Oh, man. But yeah, that's the kind of the nonsense that these tenant unions have been pushing for. And I'm not against the bad apples being called out, but there had better be a reason, okay? It better be the tenant calling the city code enforcement saying, hey, this place is not safe for humans to live in, so come down here and inspect it. It shouldn't be, well, every single landlord in the entire city has to be inspected. That's ridiculous. So all they're trying to do is fund the bureaucracy, and that's what ends up happening. So every time a landlord has to pay for this stuff, they're paying basically so that bureaucrat can have a job down at City Hall. And the hassle has only grown since KC Tenants got involved, Long said. As the renter rights group has gained influence at City Hall, local investment property owners have increasingly felt like they're being shut out of the conversation on issues such as the rights of tenants and affordable housing policy, said Long, who represents 400 rental home owners as president of the industry association Landlords, Inc. A huge percentage of rentals are owned by what I call small business housing providers who own 2 to 10 units, he said, and those are the very people who can't absorb all of these regulations. Yeah, and that's absolutely right. Okay, the huge percentage of the affordable housing especially is owned by small mom and pop landlords, what he calls the small business housing providers, okay? And they own 2 to 10 units. I'll even go as far as to say they might own just one property because these small housing providers, right, they're not always, the professionally run, but they might hire a property manager, or they might just be, something they used to live in that they moved out of and now they're renting out. But they're getting caught up in this web of, inspections and all these tenant rules and regulations, and they are having trouble evicting tenants because of these tenant right groups. And they lump all of us together in with the giant mega corporations. They think we all are multi-billionaires, and they don't realize that a lot of landlords are financially, just middle-class people, okay? They're just normal people who are running what I call a small business, just like this guy here says. We're running a small business. Small mom and pop landlords, he feels, are getting caught in the crossfire as KC Tenants take aim at big corporations that have been buying up large numbers of properties, not taking care of them properly, and jacking up rents. Long said he and many of his group's members believe that the policies and protections for renters being pushed by KC Tenants are bound to backfire by forcing out good landlords like them who try to keep their rents affordable and properties well kept. I think that they've been highly effective in getting policy created, Long said of KC Tenants, but I think that the policy has been counterproductive as a disincentive for small business housing providers to continue to produce rental units in the city. And he's absolutely right, okay? It's a disincentive. And, obviously the bigger players, they've got enough money so that they can survive if they have a tenant that's not paying rent, or if they get hit with some, hard code enforcement. But I don't want to be the guy who owns one house and suddenly the city's coming, oh, you've got some peeling paint on your property, so it's in disrepair. Or if a tenant tears your property up, doesn't tell you, and immediately calls the code inspector, and then they demand that you fix it, and you're like, hey, this is what the tenant damaged, okay? This isn't what I did. The tenant never told me they were having a problem. That's what happens a lot of the time to a lot of landlords. They don't even know there is a problem because the tenant never notified them. There's some of this stuff with these tenant unions where they're pushing all of these new regulations and stuff on to landlords. I mean, it is ridiculous, and that's why I'm totally against it. Okay, I have no problem if you have an issue, then you should be talking to your landlord directly, or maybe you should find somewhere new to live. But making demands, I mean, there's a reason why unions, they fell out of favor, okay, because they demanded too much from their employers, okay? They demanded too much. They wanted wages that were so high that they bankrupted the businesses that were, paying them. So the tenant unions, they work the exact same way. If they make too many demands, be it, oh, well, we want our rent to be so cheap, we want all these eviction protections, we want all of this stuff, we want you to fix the place up, well, you're going to bankrupt the owners of the small properties, and they're just going to get, sell the properties, get completely out of the business. And what's going to happen? It's going to end up where there's less affordable housing, and the housing that is available is going to cost more. And that's what happens everywhere where they try to put in all of these ridiculous socialist policies. But yeah, interesting article. I'm not going to even finish the rest of it. I'm totally frustrated about all of this tenant union stuff. And I own properties in Jackson County, Missouri, and right in Independence, Missouri, which is right next to Kansas City. So this is the area where I invest. This really affects me, and it just pisses me off that the tenants there are just doing this sort of thing to small landlords such as myself. So, my plans going into 2022, right now I'm refinancing 4 of my properties, okay? And I'm trying to get a large sum of money so that I can buy more property down in the Kansas City area. But I specifically am probably not going to be buying in Kansas City because of this tenant group right here. I want to buy an apartment building, honestly, probably somewhere between 8 and 12 units. And this will be a nice addition to what I have right now, in my opinion, since I already have 8 units down there. I own 4 duplexes in Independence, Missouri, so I'll probably be able to easily transition into 8 to 12 unit apartment building, because I already have a good property management company down there. I already know the area pretty well, and I think that is the next step. I'm trying to double in size, basically, because I own 12 units right now. I'd like to go up to 24, and I didn't buy anything in all of 2021. I just kind of took a whole year off, so I've got the itch. I want to buy something and get back into investing. But with all this ridiculousness going on in Kansas City never was a tenant-friendly place before, but obviously things are changing since I left. So hang in there, other landlords in Kansas City. Hang in there all across the country if you have to deal with these tenant unions.